What's up, everybody? Hope you guys doing great. Welcome to a Tuesday night coding stream. Project Tuesday party time. I'm actually really tired, so I'm trying to not fall asleep. Got my coffee here. I hope you guys are all doing great today. Got a great show today. If you watched last week's stream, we talked about implementing React Router DOM. Unfortunately, the music that I played in the background was all from Cyberpunk 2077. Apparently, it's copyrighted. I didn't know. I didn't know my Spotify was on playing random playlists, so I had to delete that stream. But I am going to review and go over the code, kind of showing React Router to you in the basic sense, and then I'll make another follow-up video to show you how to do it. Also, I want to talk about kind of like the project and why I decided to choose Strappy, why I'm using React on the front end, and possibly we're going to use Next.js for later project, and possibly we're going to make something with a React native for iPhone down the road. But the only reason I want to talk about those things today because we're using Strappy as our backend API, and I want to show you why it's awesome to have something like that, because you're able to have one API that's going to power all those complementary apps. We could have our backend with Strappy API, our React frontend could be our dashboard, the workhorse of our application, where we're going to log in, we're going to manage the projects, we're going to do all this other great stuff, and then our Next.js application could be more front-ward facing, like a business company website, but it will be powered by the same API. And then we could have a complementary phone app for whatever reason. But I just wanted to kind of be like, yo, that's what we're going to do. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Also, some of you guys, if you ever wondered, is it possible to get college equivalent computer science degree for free? And it is, and this is something I'm going to mention briefly on today's show, because one of my friends who works at Shopify told me that they do this yearly dev kind of program where for the next 4 years, maybe it's not yearly, maybe it's every 4 years, but they get a bunch of developers that qualify, and they basically flip the bill for their computer science degree. And so you're able to get the computer science degree, work at Shopify, and make some money, but at the same time you're not gonna owe any money for the degree. And what's interesting about it is that after you're done with it, after your first 4 years, you don't have to work anymore at Shopify if you decide not to. And I thought that's kind of an interesting path. I'm not gonna do it, but I thought it was an interesting path available for someone who's like, hey, I want to get a college degree. Is there a path? And I'm sure there's a qualification process that you got to pass and all this other jazz. So it's not going to be like easy, but I thought it's kind of cool and we will mention it. But let's say we got Lucky in the show here. What's up, Lucky? We got HD Global here. What's up, guys? And I hope you guys are doing amazingly great. Like, and better than I am. I'm like literally going 48 hours without sleeping. But it happens to me sometimes. I get insomnia once in a while. But today we're gonna just jump in and we're gonna talk about our project, building this massive, huge project for our portfolio. And one thing that I mentioned, the reason for using Strappy for our backend, it's because it's Strappy. You could use, whatever API you want. You could use Node.js, you could use whatever, but Strappy is what they call headless CMS, meaning that you could have it on its own accord, irregardless what front end you have. And so I was like, wow, since we're already using Strappy, why not kind of showcase the power of Strappy and why somebody would use it and why it's important to consider, especially if you're working on a smaller team, because you might not have enough developers. For instance, at my job, we actually ended up using Strappy for our backend because our backend developer, he's already busy. He's doing a lot of stuff. Doesn't have extra time to devote to doing additional backend development. So someone like a JavaScript developer, I was able to come in and handle backend with Strappy because Strappy allows you to set up a backend fairly quickly and fast. Now securing it, you got to write additional code and all this other stuff, but it's still fairly easy to get started compared to, you know, getting started with, let's say, you know, Node.js or Python and building that stuff from scratch. And my music stopped, so I'm wondering if I have my Wi-Fi running because my Wi-Fi is slow, or maybe I'm not connected to the wall with my computer. No, I'm connected. But anyway, let me know if the sound is good. Let me know how things are happening. My voice is great. I should have asked first. Also, what I was gonna say. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is off. Maybe my computer is like crying. Doesn't like it. It's like you got too many things open. Probably have too many things open, and it's just complaining about everything. And let me post there. Yeah, my audio is going crazy. And I see, yep. So, yeah. Anyway, we're gonna jump into it. I'm not even gonna worry about my music. If it plays, it plays. Maybe I just reset this bad boy. But kind of, let's take a look at the application first and what we got going on. If you guys have questions at any given time, let me know, because that's what I'm here for, and that's why I'm doing these live streams together. And so the first thing we're gonna do is look at our simple concept and design um, for the most general sense of what we're going to do. So let me share my screen here. So we're basically, let me kind of scroll up here. Our UI, and that's it, I give up on my music. Our UI here is going to be very simple. Our front page for the React application, and we will add more features, but as a basic kind of thing that, like our minimum viable product, we want to be able to showcase the projects that someone is working on. And if you are logged in, so we're going to have this logged in form, you'll be able to like and click the details button. And if you're authenticated, you'll be able to see the details, and you'll be able to write some comments to the developer whose project you're looking at. So this is like the basic kind of MVP. And what we're doing here is, for our data types, we literally have 4 data types currently. Well, in terms of our data table, we have our user, which is our developer, you guys, or it could also be a recruiter. Then our user could have a portfolio. So we have our portfolio in place. Our portfolio could have likes. That's what we worked and implemented a couple of weeks ago. And then we're yet to implement comments, but that's going to come. And so basically that is our basic layout for our application. It's going to be built with React. But, you know, I was not feeling good, and I was like, you know what? This React stuff, I'm only going to do it with you guys on the live stream. So I didn't want to do any work during the week because I don't want to feel like I'm prepared for the live stream. I want it to be random so you could see how, you know, real development is when you're coding on your own. Basically, when you try to figure stuff out and you're trying to make it work. And so this way, if you watch the last stream and you come in, you're not going to be too surprised because there's not going to be too many new things. So let's take a look at the code briefly. And so what we're doing is we're but we're running our application connected with Strappy. And if you go to Strappy at admin and log in, which I already did, you have this amazing CMS kind of page where people could come in and they could manage likes, manage content, users, whatever. And what's cool about it, not saying that this is something that you should do or use, we're actually going to figure out how to be able to do all the functionality from our own application, not Strappy. But if you wanted to, you could create users here. Let's see here, where is it? Users. And notice how you have one super admin user, that's me. Man, you guys see all the details. Good luck guessing the password though if you want to log in. But you also have this author person who is able to log in, and they're not going to have admin privileges. Whoa, zoom out. They're not going to have admin privileges, but they are an author, so they're able to add content, and if they were designated as editor, they could edit content. So you can, when you're starting out while building your application, have people actually log in into Strappy and add their data, kind of like I added here, manually, right here. And then I did add some fields, and I'll tell you why. And it's super easy, and I'll show you how you would go about doing it. But I decided to add a featured image, which is very important because we want to show an image of our portfolio here. So I went ahead and added. I also added a avatar, and it's very easy in Strappy to do because you're able to and hold on a second, I see this. And as someone who doesn't know about the backend and dev, should I use SQL or no SQL, and which database do you prefer? If you're looking to get hired and you're still learning, start with SQL first. So we actually, with this project, using Postgresql, and it's amazing because when I first started building stuff, I relied too much on Firebase and even MongoDB. And then when I started applying to jobs, there were no Firebase jobs at all. There are some MongoDB jobs, but what I found out that PostgreSQL or SQL or MySQL, it's all the same. If you learn one, you know them all in terms of SQL type of database. Is required at work. So at my previous job, we used SQL. At this job, we use SQL. This project we're doing is using SQL. And I'll post a video if you want to set up Strappy easily with PostgreSQL on your computer. I actually done a video to set it up. And then thank you for, let's see here, which I spelled wrong. It's funny because I thought you said I spelled which somewhere wrong because I misspell it all the time. Which, yeah, which is hilarious because I have the same misspelling. So I was like, is he talking to me? And then I was talking because I always misspell stuff. So that's basically what you have to do with SQL. So let's kind of dive into a project first to kind of talk about the stack. And I'm actually also going to pull up the database so we could see it as well. Kind of like a big overview picture, kind of, or kind of like full. My brain is not working. Like a 30,000 foot view of what we're doing. So first thing, let me command find my PG admin so we could log in. But we'll start here. So let's come back here to the screen. Let's make it happen. All right. Let's see if we could fix the music again because it's annoying. And next we are going to switch it roomy to our screens here and take a look at what we got working here. So I'm gonna switch screens here. All right, okay, so music is playing. We talked about basic idea of the project that we want to build. We talked about the data types, the database. The music is not going to work. It's fine. We have our basic front end. And the point here why we came up with this most basic idea here, number one, is because we want to create the simplest possible functionality to start with, where we could connect our front end and our back end together with our GraphQL. And we actually accomplished that within the first two videos. So you could go back and check them out. We have our sign-in. And this is just a mock-up. I'm not saying it's going to look like this, but just to give you an idea of what we're building. And when we take a look at our project right now, this is actually live right now. And it's really ugly because we didn't add any CSS. And so this is powered by Strappy. Strappy is our backend. Norse, we're able to add our projects here. And these projects are dynamically generated in our React application. So we go and fetch from an API using GraphQL and get the data. So what's cool about, unlike using REST API, we're using GraphQL. And so I'm literally in a, it looks like JSON, but it's not, but I'm basically able to define what I want. And let's say I want to get project, I want to get ID, name, description, like count, developer, who that belongs to, featured image, I also want to make sure that I get the avatar for the developer so we could display it. And when I click play and make that request, notice how I get this JSON object that mimics the data that I asked for, which is amazing. And so to get, the project, the developer, featured image, and all this additional information, we only had to make one request, where if we were using REST API, we might have had to make a couple of requests because project could be in one place and our featured user image could be somewhere else. And so that is the benefit of GraphQL. So for our backend, we got our Strappy, we got our GraphQL going. For our front end, we're doing React. And so I have a couple of projects open. So let me make sure which one is this one. So this is our API. And what's cool about it, I lied to you, this is not our API. Let me go back here. The green, no, that's not our API. I was right. This is our API. What am I doing here? So the good thing about it, did I open the API? Let me see this. Yeah, this is the API. What oh, okay, I get it. So let me open this up. And what's awesome, when you add data in Strappy, what it does in majority of cases, when you add the data, it will complete stuff that you need to do here. You don't have to do your models and stuff from scratch. So for instance, we have our projects and we have a controller that we could what's the word? See, my brain is frozen today, but that's okay. They have hooks here where if you need to customize the controller, which we will eventually, you could add the code here. So we have this awesome hook created in Strapi where we could customize our controller. But more importantly, when we add data in our UI here, when I add, and I'll show you kind of here, if I go to content type builder, for instance, I went into users and I created a new data type for avatar, which was an image, and I added a single image here that we are able to add and save in our application. And what's awesome, instead of writing that code myself in Strapi, if I were using Node.js, I would have to write that model. If I was using, C#, I would have to write it. But with Strapi, the model is automatically generated for you, and it's generated as a JSON settings file. So if it's going over your head, all I'm saying is that out of the box, Strapi does so much amazing stuff that you could get a lot of done without learning too much on the back end. And as your JavaScript gets better, as you get better at Node, you could come back here and start to add additional functionality yourself with Node.js to Strapi as you become a better, more rounded developer. And that's why I chose Strapi, because I wanted everybody to be able to get in here and be able to start kind of building an application that kind of is full stack, even though we might not be full stack developers. So we do handle our requests to our backend, and we're using GraphQL, which is amazing. We do work with a database, and I'll show you kind of, our database, which is connected with Strapi. And again, very minimum setup with Strapi to get it connected. And I'll look at the comments in just a second. But actually, let me do the comments first. Lucky, since we have you here, you're like #1 fan. So which I spelled blah, blah, blah. Lucky, do I have to know PHP or can I just use JavaScript for SQL? You could literally use Node.js with SQL, and because you're using Strapi, like I mentioned before, a lot of that's going to be done behind the scene for you. And so definitely, and I'll post the video here that I made. Again, I posted last week, but I think you missed last week. So I did an amazing tutorial of how to really quickly set up Strapi and Postgresql running on your local machine. And I'll share that video first so you guys could save it for later. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show
Today
you,
we are going to look at how to get
I'm going to show you the backend database running in Postgres, so you could kind of get an idea of what you're going to be looking at when you're going to do this video that I made. Let me kind of post it here, share. Okay, copy link. And I'll post it in the chat here. And boom, right here. So this video is gonna that I just posted. Check it out, guys. Save it for later. It's on our. I have a tutorial channel that I'm doing, which is gonna be not like tutorials like this where I'm building personal projects, but something that I could apply in a more general sense. I decided to create a tutorial channel where it's just get to the point, very short tutorials, right to the point, makes sense. So you could actually check out that video, or you could go and check out our new channel, and you could find it when you come to Coding After 30 channel. You scroll all the way to the bottom, and it's this dude right here, practical web development. And so tutorials that I'm like, okay, everybody needs this basic setup. Instead of me constantly repeating myself, I created this video here, getting started with Strappy Headless CMS on the Mac.
Today we are going to look at
with Postgresql, and you could kind of, okay, I'm not gonna watch the whole video, but basically this is gonna walk you through what you need. And let me kind of finish answering questions before I show you PHP admin and kind of show you kind of how our application is set up. Then we'll jump into the code, talk about React routers, and then we'll kind of talk about a bunch of other stuff that I want to talk about today. And so, no, you don't have to learn PHP. And by the way, if you're learning JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and you're going to go React route, I wouldn't even bother learning PHP unless for whatever reason the area you live, it's like those are the only jobs that exist. But you will be able to get jobs as a React developer. And there's this girl that she's actually part of our Slack and Discord channel. She ended up getting a job as a React developer. So there's a lot of jobs, a lot of availability, and so you don't have to learn PHP if you don't want to. Like, you could learn JavaScript, React, continue learning JavaScript with Node.js, and that way you don't need to learn any additional languages, and you could become a full stack developer because you could do JavaScript on the client side and you could do JavaScript as Node in the back end here. And no, there's no dumb questions. And yeah, we'll talk about SQL in a second. And what's up, Hologram Nunchucks? And so coming back here, let's kind of reiterate here. So let me share my screen again. So we're working on our project. We basically talked about what it is that we have to do here, right? We're going to create, in the most simple sense, we're going to create a portfolio object. We're going to have a user, we're going to have a like, and eventually we're going to add comments. And the basic functionality is to be able to get the projects listed on the front page. You should be able to like and detail only if you're signed in. If you're not signed in, you have to sign in. Once you're authenticated, you could like stuff and you could leave comments for developers. And what's awesome about this is because this basic kind of skeleton framework helps us hook up all of our functionality between our backend, which is our Strappy here, and our front end, which is our ugly React application, which we will make a little bit prettier. And that's all glued with GraphQL. And if you're not sure with GraphQL, it's basically, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a great way for us to make requests where we don't have to make multiple requests. Like in REST, you could just make one request to one endpoint here, which is, I know like you can't see it, but it's basically your localhost / GraphQL. And let's look at the code here. And if you guys have questions, definitely let me know. So we showed our backend, which is Strappy. And when it comes to Strappy code, as you're learning, you don't even have to worry much about all this stuff and the file structure, because this is all going to be generated automatically with Strappy. And then eventually, once you guys get better and need additional functionality, you could customize this code by adding additional Node.js code to the controller hooks and module hooks that they provided here. So it's very easy. But our React code is like super, we're going to run through it fairly quickly. And then if you have questions, we will kind of go here. So basically, this application is currently set up with Create React App. If you watch the first stream or second stream, we talk about how we set everything up with Strappy, React. Basically, we use create React app. The only magic that we did up to this point is that we are using GraphQL, so we had to create a GraphQL client, which is basically, if you read the GraphQL documentation, this is literally copied and pasted code from the documentation. So you don't even, like, as long as you're able to read, you'll be able to kind of follow up. But basically, we're getting this from GraphQL. We setting up our basic config. We're returning our client, and then we're going to our index.js here. We're importing our Apollo provider, which is provided by this node module that we installed. This is part of Apollo client. We take that Apollo provider, similar to context provider or Redux provider, and we're passing our client to it. And so now we have our GraphQL functionality working. So now what we're able to do is we're able to make GraphQL queries in our application. So let me zoom out here. And so if we go to our home section, that's where we're making our query. And again, I'm gonna walk through this fairly quickly. And again, if you're getting stuck, it's no problem, because you guys could ask questions, you guys could rewatch the streams. We're gonna continue to work on this and continue to build this, of course. So it's gonna be amazing. But basically, this is our query that we write. It's the same query for the most part that we wrote in our playground, which comes with Strappy. So we're able to test our query. We see that we're getting our data, which is amazing, because I know that my API endpoint works. And so all I have to do is just make sure that I put that same query in my code. And then in my code, we're calling this query. Actually, this is the second query. Let me see here. This is get project query. So we're calling our get project query. Where are we calling it? Right here. We're calling it here. This use query hook is part of the Apollo API, so it's very easy. You just follow the documentation, literally copying and pasting. It literally looks like this. And what this does, it hits our API endpoint. It returns an error if there's an error. If we have data, it returns the data. If it's loading, it returns the loading. We're checking if it's loading, return loading. If there's an error, return error. Otherwise, do everything as you want to do it. We have this card component that basically returns our data. And currently, we're not returning the avatar. We're not returning the background image, because I didn't do that last week. But that's something we could actually add today super easily, because I know I could pass this data in here. And the way I could do that is just to add it in our query here to get what we want. And we'll get there in just a second. I just wanted to kind of talk about and give this overview. And let's see here. Hologram nunchucks. At what stage do you think GraphQL should be learned by a dev? After React Basics? So I think, like, you definitely want to work on learning how to work with Fetch API or using Axios to do data fetching from an API. But it's very common to start there, and that's what I would recommend. I'm just happen to be focusing on GraphQL first, but then I'm going to backtrack, and then I will show you how to do it using Fetch or Axios, and that's usually something you would learn first. The only reason I'm not covering it in this project, because that's something you could easily find yourself. You know, there's a lot of tutorials, but GraphQL, even though it's very popular, not everybody uses it, but it is really awesome. So I figured, you know what, let me show you how to do it with GraphQL, and I will also backtrack and show you how to do it with a REST API. And what's awesome here, I'll show you right now, because that's an excellent question. So right now, this is our endpoint here. You see HTTP localhost 1337 GraphQL. But we also have our REST API endpoints here. So if I type, because I know we have projects here, and I click enter, notice how this returns all my projects. So Strappy is amazing because it allows you to use either REST API or it allows you to use GraphQL API. So you could literally go to HTTP localhost 1337 projects and see this. I actually have this also deployed live, and I could show you this right now. And we're going to deploy this with Heroku, and I'll show you Postgres in a second. But when I log in here, you get to see that this app is actually live, a community project. Our backend is live. It's deployed via Git. I could click Open App. And like I was talking about, showing, here projects, you see how you're able to hit this endpoint. So I'll actually post this link if you guys want to save this and you want to kind of play around, create a basic either with JavaScript or React and practice getting data via fetch. And you could literally come to this endpoint and hit that endpoint, and you'll be able to see the data. And if you want to do GraphQL, obviously you need to have GraphQL set up, and that's what we're going to kind of cover and talk about. But all in all, this backend is deployed, which is amazing. And for our backend, Strappy is deployed on Heroku, and so is PostgreSQL. Our PostgreSQL instance is also already in the cloud, which is amazing. It's running. But let me show you PostgreSQL running locally. And so what's going to happen, I put a video earlier in the chat which shows you how to set up Strapi in PostgreSQL. Once you guys follow through that video, it should be pretty straightforward. You'll be able to set up a local instance of Postgres running on your computer. And the reason why I want you guys to start with a local instance, and I'll make this bigger in a second, is because I want you guys not to become masters in using SQL databases, but I want you guys to understand the basics of when you're working at work. You are going to be working with an API. You are going to be adding data to a backend, and you will, time to time, will have to check the database, make sure that the stuff you entered is actually there. And so I have the Strappy API. I have kind of data tables here, but I have Strappy API. This is the one that we're working for a community project. If we flow into schemas and we check out tables, notice how we have our likes table, we have our portfolios table, we have our projects table. Portfolios, I'm going to delete. I renamed it to projects, so we could ignore it, but we have likes, projects, we have our user, and then comments and comments. So we added that, and that's exactly kind of what we want. And you could see that data in our database. So we have our user, we have our portfolio, we have our comments and our likes. And so switching back to my admin, PG admin right here, if I were to go to portfolios and hit view data, view first 100 rows, you're going to see that actually not portfolio, I meant to look at projects. Let's look at projects. Yeah, by the way, guys, sorry like if I'm kind of a little lost a little bit today, is because I didn't sleep for 48 hours. So I'm kind of like running on fumes, but that's okay. So notice that we have our database here, and SQL is what you call a relationship data table. So you have your IDs here, you have your information, and for instance, likes count. I'm sorry, we're not likes count, ignore that one. But we're gonna go here. Created by develop. Hold on a second, I'll find it here. So we have our ID for our projects, and if we look at our likes table, you notice that our likes will reference the portfolio ID to determine which like belongs to which portfolio. So let's go here to likes, open our view edit first 100 rows, and then so you see here we have our user field here, and this user ID here corresponds to the table for our users. And basically, that's what relationship data table is. You're allowed to have different relationships where one ID of one table could be a field in another table, and you're able to reference that to be able to get the data. And I'll show you what I mean. So notice, even though this is stored in a different data table, when we run our query, let me go back to GraphQL here. Oh, oh, mistyping. Yeah, sometimes like I just can't sleep because my brain just doesn't want to stop, and I get insomnia. I think about too much stuff, and so that's what happens. Yeah. And so, dang, why you have been up for 8 hours? It's just the way it is. My brain just doesn't want to stop. And today I'm so tired that it will stop. It has no choice. And Lucky, great questions. Why don't you use classes in React? Because now, like, the common pattern moving forward is using functional components, and it makes it a lot easier. And with functional components, you don't have to worry about the this keyword, and things work like way easier than using classes. So when you're learning React, especially now, don't worry about learning classes until it is necessary, because moving forward, you could build like this whole application rebuilding with functional components. There's no reason for us to use classes, and actually React in the docs says unless there's a weird reason, don't use classes anymore. Use functional style programming. And so basically, Norris, here we are getting our likes. Actually, we're getting likes count here. I gotta refresh this, but let me show you quickly here. What's cool about GraphQL here? If I want to query something, it's very easy. You basically type what you want to ask for. I want to get likes. And what do we want to get? We want to get likes ID. And then we also want to get user. And we want to get those user likes. And we want to get the ID for those likes, just to kind of see here. And we could also get user ID here. ID. And so you'll see that, one second here, boom. So our user ID, and we have our like has an ID, and basically, actually I didn't get this one here. I think it would be user.likes ID. It'll be the same, but so you guys could see here. So you see likes ID is 1, and it is inside our user, and it's referenced via the like ID is associated with likes in the ID table. If that sounds confusing, I'm sorry about it, but I'll show you again what I mean quickly before we switch here. Alt tab. Okay, so yes, so this is our user ID here, right? And it's referenced in our likes. So actually, this is our likes. So our user ID is inside our liked table. And basically, if this user had a bunch of likes, I'll show you, this could be 1, 2, 3, and all of these will be 1 because it's the same user. So if I go here into my trusty dandy likes here, and let's manually, and we're not going to add this stuff manually, but let's add a like by coding after 30 for community 1 project. Let's save it. Let's publish. Let's go back to our admin here, refresh. So notice how we have 2 different likes, and they all belong to user with ID of 1, which is me. So if I go back again and add another like, and normally we wouldn't add likes like this, but we haven't implemented that feature yet, so we're going to kind of do it manually. So if I add another like as a user to community 1 project, save it and published, when we go to our data table. And this is why it's important to get comfortable working with PostgreSQL and have it connected. Maybe you're not going to be managing the database, but kind of like what I'm doing here, like how do I know that my API is working? Well, because it wrote the data to the database. So when I refresh, notice you have 3 likes. And one thing I didn't do is I didn't add the portfolio that we liked here, which we're not using because we're using projects. And this is actually kind of cool to see the data in SQL. It's like, hey, I decided to use projects and not portfolios. But when I made the name change difference, it did not delete this from the database. So I will have to come back and clean this up, delete portfolio from the database, and only use projects. And this is kind of FYI, like why you want to get familiar with working, with the front end and being able to work with API and at the same time know the concept of a database. And you don't have to go any farther than this. Just know that the databases exist, at least be able to look up the table where you could see stuff added or changed when you call the API. So any questions, anything that we kind of like, I could go back and reiterate anything that I missed. Again, the idea here is to kind of talk about the project from a big picture overview to give you guys an idea of that when you're building a project that's going to be kind of work ready project, it is literally in this same type of scope, because I'm only sharing with you guys the stuff that I'm doing at work so you guys could see that, okay, what kind of stuff Paul does at work? Well, this is the stuff I do at work, and so this is the stuff, if you learn it, since I'm already hired, I'm getting paid for it, and this is the stuff you learn and get good at, you're also going to get hired. And I know when you're starting out, it's very daunting because your projects might not be at this high level caliber, which is fine, you know what I mean? But you'll be able to keep getting better, and in the back of your mind constantly be like, okay, I got to work for this higher level project, higher like quality project. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit, take a look at our code here, and also take a look about why I decided to use Strappy and do this concept of headless CMS. But the first thing I want to do is kind of review in our React application this idea of routing. And let me kind of show you what I mean here in a second. Share my screen. All right, guys. So I'm going to make a designated video on this as well. But last stream, and I kind of had to delete the stream because I played some copyrighted music, so you guys missed out. But we basically added this router provider, and it's provided by React Router DOM. You could go ahead and search React Router DOM. And if you're learning React, this is something that you will have to learn because React doesn't have its own routing. Because React is not a framework, it's a library. So you kind of have to add additional things to get full functionality. But you could follow this example, and it shows you how to set everything up with the links. It shows the switch statement that I'm going to show you in a second. It talks about how to set it up initially. And basically what I'm getting at here, guys, when you're working on stuff, get comfortable looking and reading documentation, because it's not that like I knew how to do this from like scratch. I knew that there's documentation somewhere online. I read it, and then based on the documentation, I knew that we have to create router provider. Then I knew that we have to use a link component if we want to make the links on top for navigation with the path that we want to link to, and link comes from React router DOM. So we're pulling switch, route, link, and redirect, and we're using the switch component to wrap our routes. And the reason for using switch only allows you to render one route at a time. So if we did not use switch and this route match and this route match, because it's the same, you would literally render home and details. But with switch, if it renders home, it's not going to render anything else. If it matches this route when we click this link, right, since it's only matching one route, it's only going to show this particular route. And here we have private route. This is something that we built ourselves in our last stream. And I will make a video about, because sadly I had to delete that stream. But hey, what's up, Tech Rally? How's it going? We're talking about code. And what's hilarious, nobody likes coding podcasts or lives because nobody wants to do the work. But that's okay, because this is great practice for me to talk about what I'm doing. And so we're kind of reviewing, private route in React. So we basically set up this private route right now. Since we did not implement authentication, I'm just hard coding it. If I say false, right, you should not be able to see this. Okay, I'm going to just say you are logged in. So when we're logged in, we should see that route. And then when I go to our super awesome UI here that looks amazingly beautiful and refresh, so if we go to our home page, we see our post being pulled from our API via GraphQL. If I go to I changed it in the wrong place. God damn it. That's what happens when you don't sleep for 48 hours. But it's not here. You're logged in. That should be project details. But in our private routes, in our details section, I'm going to put a message. This should be only visible. Should only be visible when authenticated. So currently we shouldn't see this because our authentication is set to false. So notice if I refresh this, I go to home, we see our home. If I try to go to our project details, it's gonna redirect us to login, you see? So when I go to home, it shows our blog posts, but when I hit project details, it automatically redirects us to a login. So let's look at the logic and code to better understand what happens before I answer some questions here. And so let's kind of backtrack here to our index.js. Okay, this is the wrong project. I'll show you that in a second. It's this one. I'm trying to color coordinate everything, but then I can forget what colors they are. So we're on our, oh damn it, wrong way. Where did I go? Index.js, app.js, yep, so router, we go to our app.js. So basically, and our private route is a component we created ourselves. And basically what we did, we called it private route. It's taking isauth. This is what we're passing. If it's false, we're not authenticated. If it's true, we're authenticated. We're passing children, which is, if you know React, you could write your component like so, and whatever you pass in between is going to be passed into props as children, so you have access to that. So we're just getting it as access, and we're getting rest of the props because, as you see here in our private route, we're also passing path and isauth. So we want to make sure that our route component from React Router DOM has access to that via REST. We're using a render prop because we want to make sure that we have access to these props. And if we are authenticated, it's going to show the child component. And if you're not authenticated, in our case, kind of you saw, it's going to redirect us to login. So now if I say true, we're faking our authentication, we'll be able to go to our app refresh here. So now if I go to login, it works, home works, login works. But if I go to project details, this should only be visible when authenticated. And because we're authenticated, we could see this. And if I log out right now, right, and again, we're faking it till we make it. If I type false and we log out here, and I go back, notice how we automatically are redirected to login because we're not authenticated. So that's the basics of working with React Router DOM in a nutshell. And I will make a designated video. So I shared a smaller video earlier today how to set up Strappy and Postgresql. And I'm going to make more videos which are going to be short, straight to the point, to walk you through in a step-by-step manner of how to set these things up. So not only do you get the big overview during these live streams, but you're also going to be getting individual lessons to be able to kind of watch them and get a refresher as you need to. So yes, I will go to bed in just a moment. And what about making the site secure and less vulnerable to hacks? Lucky, that's a very good question. And earlier I said when you work with Strappy, it gives you a lot of stuff out of the box. And basically any route that you add to Strappy, unless you give people permission or you authorize it, it's not going to be pushed to the back end. And on top of that, what we could do here is we could actually write additional logic in Strappy to secure it. So this is something that a backend developer would do. And with Strappy, as you learn and you become better, we're going to talk about how to secure a Strappy application. But what I could do is I could show you here in Strappy screen here. So this is our code. Notice that in our Strappy folder, we have this not config. Let's come back here. We have our yeah, it's where is it? API, right? Comments. This it's because we have our comments, we have our likes, right? We have our project, and notice we have this controller section. So right now this controller is empty. So it's basically using the standard controller that is shipped with Strappy, and you could literally look up the controller by Googling Strappy controllers. I think you could Google that and it should take you to this section where it shows you how to customize your backend. And basically when you don't pass anything into your controller, it will automatically pass either a find one, count, create, update, delete. So I think the one we were looking at is fine. So it's basically running this code on the back end. What's cool now is that I could take this code as a template, copy and paste it, right? Go to my instance here, paste it in here, and then add additional logic to secure the application from a backend. So there's no way in hell someone could break into it unless they're authorized user or not. And I'm not going to save this just for this example because this is all going to come down the road. Now, coming back to this idea of why we're using Strappy, it's super important, guys. If you haven't done Strappy, jump into it, play around with it, get that video that I shared earlier in the stream. Let me go and I'll share it again. Set it up, because wasting time trying to learn full stack development, especially if you use it learning front end. Front end is actually a lot of stuff you have to learn. You have to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You have to be comfortable with Git. You have to learn DOM manipulation of JavaScript. Obviously, you have to learn React. You have to learn how to do asynchronous JavaScript. You have to understand this idea between using functional paradigm versus using classes or object-oriented paradigm. If you're using React, you don't have to worry about object-oriented too much, or because everything is functional, especially since we don't use classes that much anyway. And then you also have to learn how to work with an API, how to do create, read, update, delete. There's so much stuff to learn. So if you're learning backend at the same time, you're going to learn really, really slowly because you're basically adding a lot of moving parts. And so it's going to slow you down exponentially. So I don't recommend for anybody being wanting to learn React and JavaScript and backend together. If you're doing C#, it's different because all their HTML and CSS is rendered by their backend, so you have no choice but to learn C#. But in the front end world, stuff is decoupled, and you need to make sure that you get good at front end first before you jump into back end. And by using Strappy, not only it allows you to create an API super quickly that's going to work and be amazing, it will get you up and running with an API where you could start creating, either REST API,
and doing CRUD functionality for your to-do app or your blog app, or you could start experimenting with GraphQL like we're doing, and it's not going to take you that much time to get started. So instead of wasting and spinning your wheels trying to learn everything, you could focus on becoming the best front-end React developer that you can. And the reason why we're using Strappy, this is the part that's going to blow your mind right now, is like I mentioned before, because not only can we connect to our Strappy application with our current React application that I have, right? But we are able to, and let me, I turned off my server. Let me turn it back on when I made the changes to the code. But we're able to hook up a bunch of different applications. And the examples that I want to talk about is, hold on, npm run develop. I can't type and talk. It's a weakness. We're able to use one API, we're able to use our Strapi API, and we're able to hook up our backend React application, and we're able to hook up, let's say, a client-facing or business-facing, I should say. Our React is going to be a front-end application too, but our React application is going to be like a dashboard for developers to be able to communicate with other developers, work on their projects, manage their projects, do all this other stuff. I like that. Yeah. I mean, coding phase got that better than me, but a check. Like, give me some checks. I can't do coding phase. You know what? But anyway, I get it. I feel the sentiment. Make that money happen by building an amazing portfolio. But here's the thing. By using Strappy, it's decoupled from your front end. That means not only once you decide to dive into full stack development, you could literally pull Strappy out super easy and create your own Node or C#, whatever backend you want, and your front-end application will still work the same because your backend and front-end are not tied together. They're decoupled. So the goal for this stream that's going to be on forever, like years and years, like, because we're building a huge project. We're building a dashboard type application for developers to be able to share and manage their portfolio projects. Obviously, we're starting simple, and then be able to use it as a project management to keep track of it. That's going to be with React. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to create, and I kind of started this basic implementation. I'm going to show you guys. We're going to learn Next.js. Don't learn Next.js right now, right? Next.js, this is Next.js. I used a template. That's why it made it super easy. But you see this? By the way, this is being pulled live from our database. Like, if you see this, this is nicely presented, not like our React application. Like, if I go home, it's the same information, right? But notice our client-facing Next.js application, which is going to be our business website. It's not going to have super deep functionality. It's going to be just like a basic blog, and it's going to have a projects page where people are going to be able to see all the upvoted projects and stuff that's, you know, kind of like most voted. They'll be able to see all the developers' information who are on this platform. They'll be able to check the community, join Discord. I didn't add that. And they'll have a blog section where they'll be able to read the blog. And that's all the functionality this needs. And because it's with Next.js, it's going to be like statically generated. And so it's going to be super fast, and it's going to have amazing SEO. Where a dashboard application for React, where we're going to do majority of work, doesn't need SEO because it's for us developers to be able to manage our projects. And then with this also being said, we're also going to be able to create a React native applicant, React Native for iPhone, and use the same API. So that's kind of why I wanted to share this and kind of show it to you guys, so you guys could see that the beauty of using Strappy and why it's important. And let me look at the comments here. Sergey says, Paul, what do you think about Headless WordPress comparing to Strappy? So very good question. And I love WordPress, and my current, one of my websites, Coding After 30, is actually with WordPress. And so I looked into making headless WordPress with GraphQL. And here's the thing, once I started diving into it, once I started using it, and also you do have to write custom PHP code. And I'm a JavaScript developer. I don't want to learn PHP. I'm not a WordPress developer. So for me, it made no sense, because not only if you start creating headless WordPress, you're basically going to be writing a lot of the functionality yourself anyway, um, you know, with PHP. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just use Strappy and create my own decoupled front end with React or Next.js or whatever. But yes, some people do it, but I did try it. I basically got pretty far, and then I realized it's like there's no benefit, because it's the same amount of work. And since I'm a React developer, it's just much easier for me to create the whole application using the JavaScript stack with React and JavaScript on the front end and Node.js on the back end. And so unless and by the way, like headless WordPress is such a niche market that it's very hard to get a job with that. Where as a React developer, it's easy. So if you're gonna do PHP and WordPress, okay, I get it, and then you just stick to that. There's no reason of like there's not that many clients that are gonna ask you to create a WordPress powered as a headless CMS to power like a React application. There's just not that many people. And so if you wanna be in demand, either do PHP with WordPress, which I don't recommend. Nothing's wrong with that. It's just not a path I chose. And if you're learning front end, just stick to HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and then as your understanding of JavaScript gets better, you could then transition into backend with Node, and then to make your transition to backend development much easier, use something like Strappy. So, and basically, what I wanted to show you here is pretty much that in terms of yo, what's up? How you doing? And that's what I wanted to show you guys. And let me show you here. So notice how we have this amazing Next.js application that is now powered by our same backend. And in this application, we are pulling some additional data. We're pulling this image to be able to display. And then we're also pulling our avatar to be able to display. And currently in our React application, we don't have it. So what we could do as the final thing, we could basically at least pull the image for the post. And currently, we're doing everything with GraphQL. And what's awesome about GraphQL, you just, whatever you ask for is what you're going to get. So I already wrote this query. So we want to make sure, and I don't need the hero section here for this particular project, but we do want to have a featured image, and we want to pull the avatar for our developer image. And so if I click play here, notice in GraphQL, what I ask for, I shall receive. That's why GraphQL is amazing. Not only do I get my, um, you know, project's name, description, number of likes, the developer who created it, first name, last name. I also get the avatar image, and I also get the featured image. So if I wanted to add this in my portfolio, I would just, since I know the query works, I'm going to copy this bad boy, and I'm going to go into my code. And so this is being pulled in our details component. So I'm going to go to details. I lied to you, it's not details, it's actually being pulled from our home component. So go projects component. I lied again. So we go to our projects component. So this is our query that's currently getting the data. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just paste in the query that we did before. And I just want to make sure that we name it get all projects. We don't have to name it, but it just makes it easier. I mean, maybe it's redundant. Get all projects. And so let's save this. And so now when we go to our front end here, let's make sure nothing's broken here. Refresh. So nothing's broken, but if we go to inspect and go to our console here, we should be able to see additional data here. And let me make sure we console logging it. So let me make it bigger here. So let's go back into our code. So we are calling our get projects query. So this is where our get project query is being called. We're getting the data. Once we have data, we're passing, we're iterating through the data array and returning all the items. And what I could do here for now is just console.log what that data object looks like. And it's actually data.projects projects. And so now when I go back and refresh, notice we get our, let me make it easier to see here from this side. Notice we get array of 3 items, and this is our projects. And in our projects, not only are we returning our previous information, we now have access to our featured image. We have different formats, and right now this is stored in Cloudinary, which I'll show you how to set up later. But now we have that data, and if we scroll down to our developer under avatar image, we also have the URL to our image. So now we could easily add our URL to our avatar image and add our image to our project. And since we have the data, it should be super easy. All we would have to do is go to our code, go into our card. Where did I define our card? I define our card right here. This is our card component. This is our card component. So this is where we have our data. So first we're gonna do the avatar. And if we're not worrying about styling right now, guys, I'm just saying right now, we're gonna style it later and we're gonna use Bootstrap, but we're gonna do image, and our source is going to come from our project dot, I believe, developer dot URL. And for alt text right now we just say avatar image, and we will be able to refactor this as necessary. And this should be a should be a self-closing tag. And let me delete this. And it's complaining alt attributes already, and tags as an image. You don't need to use the, oh yeah, they're complaining about this, so I'll just say avatar. Okay, so in theory, if that's correct, that should display our image. So it's not displaying our avatar here, so I must have not named it right. So we have project developer avatar image dot URL. Did I do that? No, I did not. So if we go here, it was project developer dot avatar image dot URL. So if we come back here now, and we're getting our images for our avatar. And again, we're gonna style this later, but look how easy it is. Once, like with GraphQL, we just ask and we shall receive, and then it's super easy to add. And then now we're just going to add our feature image for our blog post. So let's go here, and I'm going to put it in a div here for now, because I know eventually we will do some styling, but no big deal. It's going to be image source equals, and it's going to be project dot featured image, I believe, dot, I already forgot. All that red, I can't see it. Hold on a second. Let me hold on a second. It's our featured image, formats, large, URL. Let's do medium. Formats, medium, URL, featured image. This should be in these type of brackets. So we go project dot featured image dot formats dot medium dot URL, I believe. And that's complaining. Must have an alt prop. Alt, and eventually we'll add something exciting here for text. We could actually give the name. Do we have project ID or do we have a name, project name? We'll just put that in the alt. Oops. So make it easier on us. And so in theory, if we typed everything correctly, we should go back and we are receiving our images. So there's our first post, there's our second post, there's our third post, and boom, we now have everything looking great and amazing. And by the way, we will eventually style this, and this is an example of what a styled app could look like. And this is using Tailwind. We're not going to use Tailwind. If you haven't learned CSS, learn CSS. If you learn CSS, learn to use Sass. If you learn Sass, learn to use Bootstrap. And if you know Bootstrap, learn to use Material UI. And if you know Material UI, then you could learn Tailwind. And so I'm using Tailwind here just to have it fun. And this is, again, this is being pulled from our Strappy API the same way as our React application. So majority of the stuff is done. So what I think we're going to do next time, we're going to just style this with React Bootstrap to make it look not as nice as this, probably nicer. But with that being said, guys, I hope these live streams kind of help. And guys, please, if you have questions, definitely don't hesitate, ask questions. And I know not a lot of people watch these, and I'm perfectly fine with that because for me, I just want to make sure that I'm developing stuff. If you get anything from this stream, guys, is that I am consistently dedicating time to code and build a project. Every week that passes by, even though there might be smaller increments, we are moving forward and we are adding to our project. So I am farther ahead than I was a week ago. I am farther ahead than I was 2 weeks ago, and I'm way farther away than I was 3 weeks ago. So in 3 weeks, we did actually significant amount of work. And so the reason why I say this is that consistency and then having a system where you're working on your project and you stay single-minded focused on that one project, continue working and building it until it's done. So if you get anything outside of learning few things about what we do here and learning stuff about React, more importantly, what you get out of this is that consistency will and sticking with one project is going to trump everything else, because you see the progress I made in past 3 weeks, and then imagine where I'm going to be 3 weeks from now. And then eventually, and it's only a matter of time, I am going to have a finished portfolio that's actually going to be substantial enough for me to be able to get a job. So I hope you're learning stuff while watching these streams, but at the same time, I hope more importantly, you're kind of getting the reality of what it is and what it takes to work on a personal project, how, it's not as pretty as people advertise it when they show you on YouTube, like prepared videos. It's basically a lot of trial and error, a lot of documentation reading, and a lot of other stuff that goes into it. And so we're going to keep at it. And Brian, yeah, I don't really understand most of the stuff since I just started, but I like watching these videos. And that's awesome. And your understanding will come. And it's like what's hilarious is, like, I'll tell you this, like I was in the same position as you, Brian. And like one example I'm going to use, which I remember because it's super painful, is that I started learning Redux too early when learning React. And I did not like it did not make sense to me, and I literally felt like it was going into one ear and going out the other. But many years later, what I realized, like I was able to kind of like think back and recall the stuff I saw on the screen and make sense of it then. So like I was able to recall my memory and be like, oh, I remember seeing this pattern, and be like, oh, now I know what it is, and I recall. So you might not be able to make sense of it now, but you are slowly going to start building that in your mindset. And then the more you iterate through the material, the more you see it, the more comfortable it gets. And so as you keep it up, you constantly see it, and it becomes much, much easier over time. So let me know, guys, if you have any questions about anything we did today. And before I go, I do want to talk about something that I just want to mention at the tail end of the stream, because I think it's kind of important to give you guys all the possibilities that you have available to you. Obviously, you could go to boot camp. Obviously, you could go to college and get a CSS degree that costs $1 bajillion. Or you could do the route I did, be a self-taught developer, and they all work. It just depends on how much time and effort or money you want to invest. And for me, investing money at this point makes no sense. To go back to college for like $100,000 debt doesn't make sense, especially because I was able to get a job being a self-taught developer. But for those of you guys who are wondering, boot camp, or should I go to boot camp, like you still need to do plenty of self-study before you could apply to boot camp and be successful at it. And if you're young and have the money and you're able to go get a CS degree, that's great. But this is one thing that one of my friends shared with me that I want to share with you guys. And so one of my friends, he works at Shopify, and they have this dev degree program. I don't know if you guys heard about it. And it's basically a way for you to get a computer science degree for free. I mean, they pay you, you work as an employee, and part of it is you spend time studying and working at Shopify. And what's awesome, after you finish your degree, you could move on and work somewhere else. You don't have to um, stay there. So I'm gonna share this link and I'll quickly explain to you guys like what the deal here is. And so imagine your future. Dev degree will help you get there. And this is a path. What's awesome about it is that it's a computer science degree which you don't pay for. Earn a computer science degree through learning and placement path, which is unlike any other computer science program. Our innovation work integrates learning model and provides hands-on experience across breadth of disciplines and teams. So basically, you will be learning stuff for your computer science degree, but you're also going to be working at the same time at Shopify. And you're also going to have mentors while working there. So that is amazing. It's like you're getting an education and you're getting work experience all at the same time. So you could go and be notified. They're going to start kind of doing the process in September. So if some of you guys are interested and want to get a shot to be able to go and get a computer science degree for free, you could definitely do here. And let's take a look at more detail. So it talks about how to apply, and it's gonna, stage one starts in September. So if you sign up, they'll hook up with you in September. In October, they're going to be doing stage 2 and 3, where they want to hear a personal statement available, and they're gonna do a basic, or maybe not so basic. I didn't take it, and I'm gonna go through this process just for fun. Computational question available, and that's basically going to be like some basic logic stuff, kind of like IQ type of test to kind of see if you have like basic predisposition for coding. Um, Obviously January early consideration closes, then final application closes, then they will interview, and if you had a good personal statement, good story, you did well on the test, and you did well on the interview, they will make you an offer, and it's basically like a job offer, and you're going to be learning computer science stuff. And it talks about the steps to complete your personal statement. You could learn all the details. During the interview, you're going to meet with a degree intern. do the administrator interview, technical interview. So you're basically getting hired at Shopify, and you're going to be learning computer science at the same time. So you are going to get paid a stipend, and then they talk about the offer. And the only drawback, this is not online, it's all in person, so you would have to move. And so you're going to get a software engineers one of they talk about blah 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 pathways, and it's true. Like software engineering degree does help, um, and they do talk about how it's out of reach for a bunch of students. So their dev degree makes it possible. You earn 4 years of equivalent computer science degree, and they cover your educational cost, and they pay your tuition, and they also pay a competitive salary and vacation for a total of financial support. So in 4 years, you're going to get a degree, and in 4 years, you're going to get paid $160,000. So it's basically you're getting $40,000 a year, and tuition, or unless the tuition is included here. But basically, it's a great way if you don't have money, if you want to get a computer science degree and get hired somewhere. So I just wanted to throw that out there, kind of let you guys know that it's an option. Not saying that you guys have to do. Yeah, and it is like a cool option. And if I wasn't working, I would totally do it. But now that I have a job, but I'm still going to go through the process of applying just so I could talk about what to expect and kind of say where I fall into the process. And you guys might find it interesting, and Hologram finds it interesting. Hologram nunchucks, yeah. And if you find it interesting, definitely be able to check it out. Go to Shopify Dev Degree, Google it, and you'll be able to get there. So that's the last thing I want to talk about. We're going to continue to make progress on our application on these Tuesday streams. Those of you guys who are coming onto the streams, I really appreciate it. And again, I'm doing these streams more, not for the fact that like I need to get the views. I'm doing it more for this kind of hold you accountable. I'm showing up, I'm doing these every Tuesday, and you see progress that I'm making. If you guys are not making progress, is because you're not having a system in place that is consistent. Because look, I can't even pretend that I didn't accomplish any work, even though like I do little work on stream with you. 3 weeks ago we had nothing, and then now we have, a working, um, you know, albeit ugly application that's pulling our projects from our um, API. We added images. We have our routing, so we could go to our login page. We could go back to home page. We set up our private route, so project detail will only show if you're authenticated, and we'll continue to build on that. So anyway, guys, with that being said, I just want to say thanks so much for tuning in. And I'm going to try to get some sleep. I've been up 48 hours. So I appreciate you guys taking it easy on me and letting me mumble through a couple of sections. But with that being said, thanks for tuning in, guys. Unless you guys have any last questions that you want me to answer, let me know. I will answer those. Otherwise, we might call it a night here. Yeah, so I guess if you guys don't have any burning questions about anything, going once, going twice, going thrice. Well, thanks, guys. If you missed the stream and you're just tuning in, you could always come back and always rewatch the streams. They're always available to you. Also, I mentioned before that we do this every Tuesday, every Tuesday, US Central Time at 7 p.m. I'm going to also make standalone tutorials covering what you guys need to do. I also posted, and I'll post another one. If you want to set up Strappy and Postgres locally on your computer, you guys could do it. Thanks, Tech Rally. I am tired a little bit. Nothing cocaine can't fix. Just kidding. I don't do cocaine. It's a terrible drug, terrible drug. No, you're welcome, guys. So let me share the video before I go. If you guys looking to get Strappy or play around with Strappy, and you want to set up Strappy with running Postgresql locally on your database. I'll make more standalone videos like this one, setting up the React portion of it and all this other stuff. But we have a lot of stuff to look forward to. So with that being said, guys, thanks so much, everybody who joined us. You know, have a good night, and thanks, Adrian. Lucky. Don't think about that project when trying to sleep. Yeah, today, like, there's nothing that could prevent me from sleeping. I'm literally gonna pass out. There's no way in hell I could stay up. Even like I've been drinking coffee to stay up because I've been dozing off before the stream. And I know that even though like I had some coffee right now, I'm gonna pass out for sure. And thanks, you're really helping. And thanks for letting me know. Like I hope the stuff that I'm doing here for you guys is helping. And if you guys are not on Discord, you could always jump on Discord. Right now I'm like super busy at work, so it's very hard for me to be available on Discord. But if you do have questions, and want to set up some, I do have Sundays where I could do like one-on-one, and I like one-on-ones or semi one-on-ones because it's easier because you're able to just answer questions that people have. You know what I mean? And do it in like one time block rather than this asynchronous communication uh, that we have so amazingly in Discord. But I share the Discord and see you guys next live. Thanks everybody for everything. And with that being said, have a good night. Make sure you guys continue to code. And I'm just gonna fall asleep right here. Go to sleep. Oh, yep, yep, yep. All right, all right. Get my cat. Cuddle with my kitty cat. Oh, sleepy sleep. All right, I'm not going to make you guys watch me sleep. I'm going to put the cat down and I'm going to end the stream. Have a good night, guys.